Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Friday, the 14th of September, 2012. I'm Jim Ninsel, host of Political Roundtable, our weekly analysis and commentary on local, state, and national politics. Tonight on the Roundtable, we'll look at the latest poll numbers in the U.S. Senate race between Republican Jeff Flake and Democrat Richard Carmona. We'll also examine the new TV ads in the hotly contested congressional campaign between Democrat Ann Kirkpatrick and Republican Jonathan Payton, and talk about the latest in downtown revitalization. Joining me this evening is Pima County Democratic Party Chairman Jeff Rogers, Republican National Committeeman Bruce Ash, and Tucson City Councilman Steve Kosachik. Thanks to all of you for being here. Let's start tonight with the U.S. Senate race. We did see some new poll numbers in that race from public policy polling, showing a very close race, a single point separating Jeff Flake from Richard Carmona, 44-43. We also had a lot of action in that race this week. We saw a Democrats for Flake organization come out. We saw some controversy over a mining proposal in rural Arizona, with Jeff Flake wondering where Richard Carmona was on that, and we saw some back and forth on Medicare in that race. Bruce, who won the week in the U.S. Senate race?
Oh, this is a long race. It's a marathon, and I think at the end of the day, if you voted for Mitt Romney on the top of the ballot, you're going to vote for Jeff Flake, and it's going to be a hard-fought battle. Both sides have a lot of money. I think Flake, though, because of the Maricopa County connection and rural county support with conservative LDS voters, turns up the winner. All it has to be is 50% plus one vote at the end of the day.
Steve, your sense of where this race is at this point?
Well, I'm not sure that I agree with Bruce that if you axiomatically you vote for Flake if you vote for Romney. I think that the polling indicates that Rich is up in Maricopa County stealing endorsements from Flake's home turf. He last week picked up some CEOs, he picked up some small business people, Williams Air Force Base, and in fact, the Goldwater family stepped up to the plate and endorsed him, and in doing so, they said if Barry Goldwater or Ronald Reagan were running the same, they couldn't run in this Republican Party. They'd be called liberals. So I think that speaks volumes as to the direction that the party is lurching and the support that Rich is going to get from crossover votes and centrist Republicans.
Jeff?
Well, I think Carmona won the week. I mean, we now know that not only is Flake a flip-flopper, but now he's a hypocrite, too. I mean, you've got to figure out what happened this week is he said that he was going to vote against the farm aid bill and subsidies for farmers, and then lo and behold, we look and find out that his own family's business has received $400,000 in government dole to their farm in the form of subsidies. So, is this I was for it before I was against it kind of an attitude. And I do like this poll. As I look at it, it rings true. And it rings true for several reasons. But first, you've got 53-44 Romney ahead. That just sounds right for Arizona right now, and we had hoped we could put this state in play for the presidential ticket, but that sounds about right where I think that is, and that gives me pause to think that this poll is at least this good for Carmona, maybe better. And here's what makes me think it's a little better: they oversampled Republicans. You've got 44% of the people sampled were Republicans. Independents were somewhat undersampled by 21%, and then you've got the favorability ratings. You've got the unfavorability ratings. You've got Flake at 34%, which is over twice the 16% unfavorability ratings for Carmona. Carmona's got a lot of room for growth there because 49% of the people still don't know who he is. So what we see consistently in this race is when Rich Carmona is introduced to people across this state, they love him. Flake, not so much.
Bruce, weigh in on what Steve was saying there about the conservative bent of the Republican Party at this point.
Jeff Flake has always been a maverick within the party, an independent voice, has never necessarily gone along with either party leadership in the House or had much to do with the Arizona Republican Party. He's catered more to his constituents. He's well respected, well liked with his constituents. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to ring through. People in Arizona know Jeff Flake. They sometimes get him mistaken for Trent Franks, the two Fs, but he's a well-known commodity and has tested very well over a number of years in his elections.
Well, you heard the other thing he did this week was he came out and said, well, this sequestration, where we're going to have these forced cuts across the board, which of course he voted for, and most Republicans did, that this is absolutely wrong, and that we cannot take a penny away from the defense because instead we've got to take it away from entitlements like Medicare. Well, I don't think of Medicare as an entitlement, but here's a guy who his party is lying to people, saying they're going to run on a platform of protecting Medicare, and he's already saying, no, we need to cut Medicare instead of cutting defense spending when we've had 2 wars that were not paid for, that were financed, shall we say, and borrowed against the Treasury. So this guy had a bad week.
Jeff, Obamacare cut $716
now
billion.
That's an absolute lie, Bruce, and you know that.
Oh,
even
Jeff,
Fox
please.
News finally admitted
Jeff.
the other day that this is a lie that's being peddled.
Please.
And PolitiFact, as a matter of fact, when Flake ran a commercial like that attacking Carmona, you know what? The PolitiFact checked that one, as did I think it was ABC News in Phoenix, and said this is not true. Now that thing has been fact checked to death, so much so that even Fox News has admitted that's not true.
If we want to continue running Medicare and Social Security the way we have, and having all the problems actuarially with both of those programs, we're going to have major problems for the young people in this country.
Well, I would agree. It's a problem we need to work together to solve, but we don't solve that problem by telling falsehoods to the American voters, and which are admitted
Democrats
falsehoods.
Even
the Republicans
passed
have
a
quit
budget.
running those ads. So.
Democrats haven't passed a budget in 3 years. This will be the only president in the history of the country who's ever passed a budget.
Well,
and you
need
can't
60 votes to get one through the Senate. How can you get it passed without Republican help?
You can try to talk over me, Jeff, but you can't run the budget when the Senate Majority Leader won't even hear the budget that comes out of the House, and the president's own budget was defeated 100-0 in the most recent vote.
Well, we can't pass a budget without Republican help, and the Republicans don't want to help. After all, they have said their number one priority is to make Obama a one-term president.
And he will be.
All right,
I think the exchange is for the reason you're seeing people gravitate towards the independents more and more, because people are just tired of the intransigence on both parties, and they're wanting to see people get off of these multi-billion-dollar arguments that make people's eyes glaze over. You want to fix Medicare, increase the means test it. You want to increase Social Security, increase the income cap. People are tired of the parties being so polar opposite, unable to even have a civil conversation about realistic solutions. And I think that's why you're seeing about a third right now in terms of party registration and independence.
Steve, there's plenty of good suggestions that have been put forth by Republican elected officials and Republican candidates.
The fact of the matter, though, is that, Bruce, is that people watch the exchanges and they say an inability to sit down at a table and lay those proposals on the table and say, this one doesn't make sense, this one does, let's collaborate and create some good public policy. They see this kind of stuff going on between the parties, and they're tired of it.
Well, the president has failed to show leadership.
It's all the president's fault.
The president has failed to show leadership, both within his own party as well as with the Republicans.
You just suggest this is one of the reasons why Rich Carmona is going to do quite well.
And I would agree with that.
Because he doesn't fit within one or the others. He's right down the middle, and he's been an independent all of his life, and I think the voters are going to like that. We just have to get him out there and let them know him.
All right. The other, I think, exciting race for southern Arizona and also northern Arizona is Congressional District 1. That seems to be the one where both parties are weighing in on behalf of either Republican Jonathan Payton or Democrat Ann Kirkpatrick. Congressional race in a district that leads Democratic in registration but is competitive. And we have a couple of advertisements that debuted this week. Let's first look at the one that was sponsored by the National Republican Congressional Committee on behalf of Jonathan Payton.
Nancy Pelosi is desperate to have Congresswoman Ann Kirkpatrick back in Congress because Kirkpatrick helped her pass Obamacare. That vote could destroy 249,000 jobs and raise taxes by $2,000 for some families. The better choice? Jonathan Payton, combat veteran, fiscal conservative. He'll vote to repeal Obamacare, lower taxes, and help create jobs.
All right, Steve. Persuasive ad in favor of Jonathan Payton here?
You know, I've got the advantage of having a fast forward on my remote, and so I generally fast forward past the ads. I think people are so chastened by the length of these campaigns right now, that they're just saying, let's see the one-on-one debates. They understand what people are doing with the ads. They're either misrepresenting their opponent or they're trying to hyper promote themselves. I think people's eyes glaze over, but I'm not persuaded by many of the ads that we're seeing on TV either way. I think people just want to see mano a mano. Let's sit down across the table and debate the issues.
Bruce, your thoughts on that one?
Jonathan's worked very hard in this campaign. He's a serious candidate. He's raised a lot of money. He was just named a young gun by the NRCC. He'll have even more funding as a result of it. They understand his ability to capture the vote in this conservative district, although Republicans don't have a majority registration-wise. I think a lot of this vote's going to depend upon independents, going to depend upon socially conservative Democrats who largely live in the out counties in eastern Arizona. And he does have a very good following in Pinal County and northern Pima County, where he's run in 2010.
And Jeff, before you weigh in here, let's take a look at the one from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, which is actually hitting Jonathan Payton. Let's take a look at that one.
They call him Payday Payton, a corporate lobbyist who worked for the payday loan industry, even defended their predatory targeting of seniors. And as a legislator, Payton pushed a deceptive initiative to bail out the payday industry and allow the continued gouging of the everyday citizen. Interest rates of 390%. Jonathan Payton, he profits. We pay the price.
So clearly a negative ad attacking Payton in this case, and Jeff, this is the Payday Payton moniker is one that has been a thorn in Jonathan's side for some time.
It has. He's been running away from it as fast as he can for years now, and he can't get away from it. I mean, it's like the Macbeth stain, out spot. You know, he can't get rid of it. And he's been a lobbyist for other organizations as well, and attaching lobbyists before your name is something that the voters are just not happy about. They don't trust lobbyists. But on top of that, this guy is in addition to being a payday loan lobbyist, he's a carpetbagger. Let's face it. I mean, he needs a GPS device to find his way to this district, whereas Ann Kirkpatrick has spent her entire life in this district, except for the little bit of time she was in college and law school down here in Tucson. So it's a stark choice for these voters. And, Jonathan is just, his values don't fit with that district. He doesn't know the people of that district. She's got a wonderful ad out now showing her driving around the district, meeting with her constituents. She was barely defeated in a wave election that waved a lot of Republicans into office. So I see her as just being an outstanding candidate. She's going to work that district well. People there know her, and they know her and they trust her. They're not going to elect an outsider from Tucson who doesn't know the district.
This is the same Ann Kirkpatrick who walked out on town halls that she held because she didn't like the criticism that she received by her constituents.
You remember those vicious assaults that were put up by Republican Tea Party folks during the summer of 2009? You remember that?
They were Americans speaking their minds.
That was pretty vicious, and it led to threats of violence. We had people showing up at Gabrielle Gifford's rallies with guns. And we all know where that led. So, that was a vicious year of angry people, and they tried to say that it was some grassroots movement. Now we know it was astroturfed by the Koch brothers and the Republican Party and Fox News, and it wasn't any kind of unique new movement. It was just a bunch of angry Republicans who were angry that an African American was in the White House and that they had lost that election.
See, Steve, this is exactly what you were talking about, because this is really hate-mongering. This is the sort of vicious hate talk that Jeff has been engaging in for a long time,
and
calling people names and so on, teabaggers and astroturfers and hidden organizations.
If it were the Democratic Party alone that was doing it, I would take your point. But I was sitting in city council chambers one night on the 1-month anniversary of the shooting of Gabby Giffords, and Gabrielle Saucedo Mercer was holding a gun rally outside council chambers with Gun Owners of America in my honor, because they didn't like a vote I took, and honoring Gabby Mercer. That is the height of insensitivity, to bring guns down to council chambers on the 1-month anniversary of the shooting of Gabby Giffords to honor a woman named Gabby. So it goes both ways, Bruce. foolish, and I think people are tired of it.
And these were shout downs, Bruce. These were not, people were there to discuss policy. The Congress people came home to their districts all across the nation
and they
to
heard
hear
how
from
their
their constituents.
felt.
No, they didn't hear. They didn't hear. They
because
heard screaming and yelling
because she walked
and
out of the
shouting
meeting.
people down. It was not a civil discourse, Bruce. And had we had a civil discourse...
You think civil discourse is shutting up and taking instructions. Okay?
No, civil discourse is letting everyone talk
Civil
and listening
discourse
to
is
each
about
other.
tolerance, Jeff.
I agree with you on that. I absolutely agree with you on that.
Well,
And there
glad
wasn't,
we-
and
glad
none
we
of that
agree
was
on
going
something.
on during that summer. That was a very ugly summer for politics across this nation. And
it was an ugly summer because the Congress did something that they had never done before when they passed Obamacare. It clearly is still a very, very unpopular program that could very well lead to a one-term presidency for Barack Obama and did cause the end of many political careers in 2010, and Kirkpatrick's included.
Well, she barely lost. That's a race that months ago I called and said she'll win that race, and I believe she will.
Let's shift over to some of the city issues that have come to the forefront in recent weeks. Steve, this week the City Council voted unanimously to back a proposal you had regarding greyhound dogs and anabolic steroids, banning the use of these steroids with the racing greyhounds.
Yeah, I am so glad for that. In 2008, the city of South Tucson passed a proposition, the voters passed a proposition that really had four parts to it, and it had to do with animal welfare, what size cages the dogs are in, what kind of food they're fed, how much exercise they can get. We have no jurisdiction over any of those issues because the track is in South Tucson. But we could say that when we found a track veterinarian driving truckloads of dogs, literally, trailers of dogs, into the city of Tucson, injecting them with anabolic steroids and then driving them back into South Tucson, and we can say enough. We're going to draw a line in the sand right here, and you're not coming into the city to do that. There's more to come on this, though. As recently as this morning, I was on the phone with some folks and advising them that the Pima County Animal Care Center has never registered those dogs. Now that is $60 per dog plus a $400 kennel fee. Or if you're talking about a South Tucson ordinance, the numbers are a little different. But these are tens of thousands of dollars that the Pima Animal Care Center has been left laying on the table that should be going into the infrastructure and the general fund of South Tucson. There's that. There is the fact that the state legislature offers the Greyhound Park what's called a hardship tax credit, nearly $500,000 a year to subsidize that industry. And let's not kid each other. The owner of this lives in Florida, where gaming is a big deal. This is simply subsidy after subsidy to protect the gaming industry in this state. And the only reason that track is operating right now is because the legislature hasn't had the guts to decouple live racing from gaming. As soon as they do that, that track can go away. We can turn it into a soccer facility for youth in South Tucson and end live racing, live greyhound racing in this state. But that'll take some guts at the state legislature's level.
And Bruce, your thoughts on the whole greyhound racing industry here and the decision the council made last week?
Well,
this week.
The decision with respect to the anabolic steroids is the right decision. I'm not sure that I quite agree with Steve that greyhound racing ought to be shut down and turned into a soccer field. I hope at least they would have the good sense to go through an eminent domain process if that was the direction that they went. But Steve and I are both pet lovers, and I certainly wouldn't want to see any animal suffer. We don't like it when professional athletes and amateur athletes do steroids. I've seen the results of that myself, and it's an awful thing.
Well, I couldn't applaud Steve more. I mean, what a great job you've done with this issue, and I agree with him 100% on this. The next hurdle, though, is the county, and I don't think that's absolutely guaranteed. But I hope the County Board of Supervisors will do the same thing and follow Steve and the mayor and council's in this. And I just I think if there's enough pressure brought that they'll do that. And I think that what is happening is you don't need to outlaw dog racing. What is happening is once this happens and a few other things fall into place, I think it's going to sort of die a natural death, and then maybe we will see a soccer field there.
And it might if you continually remove the subsidies and it's made to stand on its own feet. The general manager of the track said if you pass the anabolic steroid ban in the city of Tucson, I will move into the county, and if they pass it into the county, I'll move to Pinell County or onto an Indian reservation. I mean, this shows a level of character, the lack thereof, of this this guy who's running this thing. Greyhound racing is a hideous example of animal abuse. The dogs are kept in cages that are 45 by 35 by 35. If I did that, or anybody around this table, for 18 to 20 hours a day, if anybody around this table did that, they'd be cited for animal abuse. But because it's under the guise and the umbrella of greyhound racing, they get away with it. So I would love to see the thing shut down. I think it's a hideous excuse for sport, and I'm glad that we got the steroids thing passed.
Let me also ask you about the Transportation Department. The last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of changes in the Transportation Department following reports about workers using materials and equipment on side jobs, and then also this whole issue of porn viewing at work and gun cleaning at work and some other issues there. So what's going on here with this Transportation Department?
You got to wonder what these people are thinking. I mean, in a job market like this, where we've got unemployment at whatever level it is, 7, 8, 9%, whoever's numbers you look at. For you to be doing something just abjectly stupid like that, embezzling taxpayer money and or equipment or material or time, or using city equipment to view porn. I mean, I got to be thinking, I'm playing chess in this, I'm going to be thinking two or three moves down the board. What am I going to say to my wife and my kids when I knock on the door and say, hey, guess what I got busted for today? Watching porn. And in one case, it was adolescent porn. So I got a 15-year-old daughter. Hey, sweetheart, I was watching your friend on porn today. These guys have just not got to be thinking at all. The problem with this, though, is that we've got about 5,000 employees at the city. This is a small percentage of them. It is going to scar the reputation of the city writ large, generally, while we're walking towards a bond election that is very important to this community in terms of getting our roads repaired. And I'm just concerned that the stain this is going to leave is going to have the voters turn around when they get to the ballot box and say, you know what, there was porn, there was guns, there was people stealing and embezzling equipment. I don't trust you people with another $100 million of your money, and they will vote no on that. And that is potentially the collateral damage that we can see from this.
Bruce, you think this does put the road bonds in danger?
Well, this and Parkwise and Rio Nuevo and a lot of other trust issues that taxpayers have with the city of Tucson in general. And there's a lot of blame to go around. Steve made an important distinction. There are a lot of city employees who do a great job, and they're dedicated public servants, but they're stained by the few people that do this. And I think probably we need to look throughout the city and county at a number of employees and really make sure that we're getting the greatest productivity for the dollars that we spend to provide all these services. That's an important responsibility of government, and I'm not sure that the taxpayers here in Pima County have a lot of faith in the government today.
Jeff?
Well, I have a great deal of faith in Miranda. When he took over the police department from Chief Smith, that was a totally botched hiring that should have never happened. And morale was low, and a lot of things needed to change. And he did an unbelievably good job of bringing morale up to muster and really making that an outstanding police department, probably one of the best in the entire state. And now that he's been appointed manager, I applaud him for this kind of an investigation and for rooting out these bad apples. As Steve said, out of 5,000 employees, that's a big workforce. You're going to have some bad apples. And I think that he and the mayor and the council have decided that, we're going to have transparency and accountability, and people will be held accountable. And I applaud them for doing this, and I hope that as these two gentlemen just said, that I hope that it doesn't cause people in this area to reflect badly on the rest of the city employees who are doing their job and are honest and trustworthy. And
Steve, the council also voted this week to decline to extend a rezoning agreement regarding a parcel down just near the Stone Avenue underpass, Franklin and Stone, because they were concerned that instead of the original plan for condos, hotel, retail, and other things, there was going to be student housing down there. Is there a growing concern about oversaturation with student housing in the downtown area in general?
Yeah, in general, I have the concern. I'm not a real estate expert, but I do know that we have 50 to 60 stories of student housing, either in design right now, through design, or in construction. You have to wonder, at what point do you reach that tipping point where you have oversaturated the market? We have a lot of housing stock in neighborhoods surrounding the campus right now that are vacant and could be go through tenant improvements and brought up to speed and rented out into 2 and 3 bedroom kinds of residences. At some point, though, and we want people to move into the downtown area, we've got a lot of activity going on down there, not just student housing. But at some point you have to start building the amenities into the area that are going to cause people to want to go and live down there, a grocery store, a laundromat, a barber shop, or a whatever. So I think the council made the right decision. This was a proposal that began, as you correctly described it. It was apartments, and it was a brewery, and it was several other elements, retail. It morphed into nothing but student housing, yet another 450 or 60 beds, whatever the number was. We have plenty of it going on right now. I think it might be worthwhile to hit the pause button and say maybe we ought to start incentivizing the other amenities that will cause people to want to live and work and play in the downtown area, other than just bars and clubs and student housing.
Bruce, right decision on this parcel, and in general, is downtown revitalization, you think, getting on the right track?
Well, this particular declination to renew a zoning ordinance may be as a result of what happened just recently in the Woona district, where really the neighbors have turned against the city council, again, a lack of trust with some of the decisions that have been made over their objections. We want to see as much high-density growth as is possible along the trolley line and in conjunction with the University of Arizona. Otherwise, we're going to be back to the student mini-dorm situation that we've been battling over for years. There is a compromise, I'm sure, in the offing. Mr. Horvath and his company has done a lot of very, very fine projects throughout here in Tucson, and I'm confident that he will work out what he needs to with the city of Tucson. It was a change. It wasn't welcome on that basis, but we need to have high density in downtown, and I totally agree with Stephen that we need to have other amenities, groceries, drugstores, other conveniences.
All right, and Jeff, we're down about 20 seconds, but downtown revitalization,
I think it's coming
in the right
along
direction?
well, and I agree with both of these guys on this. I think this is something we're pretty unanimous on, and Town West has done a wonderful job with the developments they've handled before, and I hope that they do come back to the table, because they're handling a blighted housing unit right now on Fort Lowell near Campbell that was just like a ghetto, and it looks like they're going to turn it into high-rent loft-style apartments, and I hope they come back to the table. All
right, we're going to have to stop right there, but you can learn more about what's happening in local politics by visiting azpm.org, and while you're on the website, we'd love to hear your thoughts about tonight's program, so be sure to leave us a comment. And to find out the latest from AZPM, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Stay tuned next for the News Hour, and then at 8:30, tune into Arizona Week for an in-depth look at efforts to boost the Latino vote in Arizona. Next week, Arizona Illustrated will take a look at Casa Maria's efforts to feed the hungry in our community. I'm Jim Ninsel. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.